Merriam-Webster shared their most searched words of the week today. And as one of their newest top fans, I may have gotten a little carried away over analyzing them. Have you ever wondered what society is thinking about? Not what we're posting about, and not what we're arguing about, but what we're thinking about. This week, Merriam-Webster shared their most searched words, and at first glance, they seem completely unrelated. Screwworm, knickerbocker, racism, tradwife, Burridan's ass. Random, right? Except I don't think they are. Words trend for a reason. People don't search for words unless something underneath those words wants to be understood. And when I looked at this week's list, I realized those aren't vocabulary words. They're a snapshot of the collective psyche, a cultural journal entry. Screwworm asks, what is hurting us? It's literally a parasite that lives in wounds. And isn't that often how life works? The things we refuse to heal rarely stay the same. Ignored wounds tend to deepen. Knickerbocker asks, who do we belong to? It's a word tied to identity, heritage, and place. Because no matter how independent we become, humans still want the same thing we've always wanted: to know where we belong. Racism asks, how do we treat each other? And what happens when we decide that different means less than? Because racism is a strange thing when you really think about it. On a planet floating through space with billions of people trying to survive heartbreak, raise children, pay bills, find purpose, and just make it through another week, we somehow convinced ourselves that skin tone was a reasonable way to sort human value. That's not wisdom. That's fear wearing a name tag. The truth is, every person you meet is carrying a story that you can't see. And I have yet to find a skin color that determines kindness, courage, intelligence, integrity, or love. Tradwife asks, how should we live? And whether you love the term, hate the term, or fall somewhere in the middle, the conversation isn't really about aprons and homemaking. It's about identity, choices, values, and who gets to decide what a meaningful life looks like. And then there's my favorite word on the list, which I may be mispronouncing: Burridan's ass. It sounds ridiculous, but it just might be the most relevant word of them all. Burridan's ass is a philosophical dilemma about a donkey standing between two equally appealing piles of hay, unable to choose, so it does nothing. And the modern version isn't a donkey. It's us, standing between two opportunities, two paths, two dreams, two versions of ourselves, waiting for certainty before we move, but certainty rarely comes. Sometimes the greatest obstacle isn't making the wrong choice. It's refusing to make any choice because you're waiting for a guarantee that doesn't exist. And suddenly, this week's words began telling a story. What is hurting us? Where do we belong? How do we treat one another? How should we live? And when life presents us with two roads, how do we choose? And maybe that's the real spell hidden inside this week's trending words. Heal what is wounded. Remember what connects us. Allow people the dignity of their own path. And when life asks you to choose, choose. Because movement teaches us more than certainty ever will. And sometimes the words we're searching for are really just mirrors helping us understand ourselves.